We've all been there, right? That feeling of being totally stressed out. But have you ever stopped to think about how that feeling, that mental pressure, actually gets under your skin and makes you physically sick? Well, today we're going to dive into the fascinating and honestly kind of scary biology behind it all. It's like a cascade of dominoes tipping over inside our bodies.
And look, the stakes here are incredibly high. This isn't a new idea. Hans Selye, basically the father of stress research, said it pretty bluntly way back in 1950. What he's really saying is that stress isn't just an inconvenience. It's a genuine threat to our survival, and our body has to gear up for a fight.
Now here's the thing. Your body, it's brilliantly designed to handle stress in short bursts. Those adaptive responses Selye was talking about, they're lifesavers. But what happens when the stress just never goes away? When it becomes chronic? Well, that's when those very same protective systems start to cause some serious damage. Think about it like redlining a car engine, but for months on end.
And there's actually a scientific name for all this cumulative damage: allostatic load. This is our first absolutely crucial domino. Just think of it as the price tag, the total cost your body pays for being stuck on high alert for way too long. It's the launch pad for so many health problems down the road.
So to really get a grip on this wear and tear, you've got to know that our body has two totally different alarm systems. I love this analogy. Think of them as a sprinter and a marathon runner. First, you've got the sprinter. This is your classic adrenaline-pumping fight or flight response. It's super fast. But then there's the marathon runner. This is a much slower, more sustained system that's built for long-term challenges. And its main fuel, a hormone called cortisol. Okay, so let's really zoom in on that marathon runner, because when we're talking about chronic stress, this is the system that's being forced to run a race with no finish line. And this is where the real damage from that slow burn really begins.
This whole chain of command has a name, the HPA axis, and it is incredibly efficient. It's like this. Your brain senses a threat. It shoots a signal to your pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is like the dispatcher, right? It relays the message down to your adrenal glands, which get this signal, and boom, they release cortisol. Simple, elegant, and super powerful.
And I want to be clear here. Cortisol isn't the villain of the story. Its job is actually super important, to get you ready for a challenge. It floods your system with energy by unlocking your glucose stores. It dials down inflammation. All of this is incredibly useful stuff if you're, running from a lion or something.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the critical turning point. This is the next big domino. The real problem isn't just having too much cortisol. The real danger is when the whole system just goes haywire. When it becomes, well, the technical term is dysregulated. It just stops responding the way it's supposed to.
And this dysregulation can actually look like two opposite things, which is kind of wild. On one hand, you have people with heightened reactivity. They get these massive cortisol spikes over tiny little stressors. That's linked to things like heart problems. But on the other hand, some people develop a blunted response. Their system is just so worn out, it barely reacts at all. And that's tied to burnout, chronic fatigue. It's a huge red flag.
Okay, so we've got this whole hormonal roller coaster happening. But believe it or not, that's only half the story. Stress also messes with your body's, it's electrical wiring. I'm talking about your autonomic nervous system. This is the system that controls all the stuff you don't think about: your heartbeat, your breathing, your blood pressure.
And the best way to think about this is a simple car analogy. You've got your sympathetic system, that's the gas pedal. It revs you up and gets you ready for action. Then you have your parasympathetic system. Those are the brakes. It calms everything down so you can rest and digest. And when you're healthy, there's this really beautiful, delicate balance between the gas and the brakes.
But you guessed it, chronic stress just shatters that balance. Check out this data from a huge analysis on job strain. It's actually stunning. Look at that number for sleep. People with high job stress had a blood pressure increase of over 3.5 points while they were asleep. I mean, that's when your body is supposed to have its foot firmly on the brake, right? Instead, the stress is just keeping the gas pedal floored all night long.
All right, hang on, because now we're going to the deepest level of all. We've talked hormones, we've talked nerves, but what if I told you that stress can actually reach inside your cells and leave a fingerprint on your DNA? Not changing your genes, but changing how they're read.
This was a massive shift in how scientists think about this. For the longest time, the idea was simple: stress just weakens your immune system. But it turns out that's way too simple. The truth is, chronic stress doesn't just turn the volume down on your immunity. It completely scrambles the signal. It you guessed it, dysregulates it.
And scientists have actually found the specific genetic signature of this. It's called CTRR. And it's this predictable pattern of which genes get turned on and off in people who are going through long-term stress. It's kind of like a software update for your immune cells, except it's a really, really bad update.
So what does this terrible software update actually do? Well, it's a nasty double whammy. On one side, it cranks up all the genes that cause inflammation. And on the other side, it turns down the genes that help you fight off viruses. So think about that. Your body is basically on fire with inflammation, and at the exact same time, its shields against infection are being lowered.
Okay, so this all sounds pretty serious, right? And this leads to the million-dollar question. We've seen all these dominoes fall. This allostatic load, the cortisol system going haywire, a nervous system stuck in overdrive, and even our genes being read differently. But does any of this actually make you sick? Is there actual proof?
The short answer? Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about the landmark studies that finally connected all these dots and gave us the proof we needed.
The way they proved it was kind of brilliant and also a little wild. They did these things called viral challenge studies. They got a bunch of healthy volunteers, carefully measured their stress levels, and then they literally gave them nasal drops containing a common cold virus. And then they just sat back and watched to see who actually got sick.
And the results? They were absolutely crystal clear. They found a perfect dose-response relationship. What that means is the more stress someone reported, the higher their chance was of actually getting a full-blown cold. It wasn't a coincidence, it was totally predictable. And when they dug into the data, they found something really important. The type of stress really mattered. This wasn't about having a single bad day at the office. The biggest risk factor, by far, was chronic stress. Those tough situations with work or in relationships that just drag on for a month or longer. That was the stuff that really left people vulnerable.
And this whole thing isn't just about what's happening to you right now. The effects of stress add up over your entire life. We now know that serious adversity in childhood can actually change the way a kid's stress response systems are built in the first place. It can essentially pre-program them for dysregulation later in life, which puts them at a higher risk for all kinds of health issues, even decades later.
So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Stress is not just in your head. It is a physical, measurable force. It is a biological cascade, a series of dominoes that starts with a feeling but ends with real, concrete changes to your hormones, your nervous system, your genes, and ultimately your health.
And that leaves us with a really big, kind of profound final thought. We've seen how stress can leave a biological mark that can last a lifetime. So the question we really have to ask ourselves is, what are we passing on to the next generation?